Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Tauber, and I'd like to express my thanks that you joined us today in our second, earlier in the Eastern time zones, I guess is what we call it. This is the West MANRS Community Day, second MANRS Community Day meeting for 2025, and right earlier today in the European and East Asian time zones. We had an earlier meeting. This is for the more of the Western Hemisphere and some European and possibly Pacific time zones as well. At any rate, this is a situation where I'd like to, I guess I was going to see if I could welcome our new electees to the MANRS Steering Committee. So I have been reelected. I'm very happy to communicate. The other newly elected members are not able to join yet today, but that's essentially some housekeeping and internal information that we wanted to pass along. And we've got lots of claps and nice nice reactions. And we've got a good program that we've put together for you today, and including up front some updates about what's been going on with MANRS at an organizational level. At any rate, okay. So Alejandro is saying that Victor was able to join the East session. That's great. And D Ma, who's our other new electee, is let us know that he was attending a conference, but would try and join if he were able to. So hopefully we'll see him at some point. Okay, so what else would you like to let everyone know, Alejandro, and we can have a brief
Yeah,
discussion?
maybe we can kick it off with my part of the agenda. I will fly through it so that we have time for the guest speakers. We have quite a few today. One, two,
That's
three.
great.
It's 5 and 6 if Rich finally makes it. It's gonna be a good crew. And in the morning it was very interesting discussion, so I think it's gonna be the case again. I'm gonna be speaking now, so Pablo, if possible, if you could welcome people as they join, so I don't need to click. So let's go for it. I promise to be as short as I can. So updates from the Secretariat. This is Global Solar Alliance, and let me give you a brief overview around this question. How has MANRS evolved since January 2024? Why that date? Because that's the date when we officially started the Secretariat functions for MANRS. Yeah, we got it from the Internet Society. There was an agreement between the Internet Society and the Global Solar Alliance. That agreement was signed kind of 2 years ago, so this is some sort of the anniversary of it. Yeah, so it's time to reflect on the figures for last year, but also the figures for the last 2 years to see how things have changed. You're gonna hear a lot of background noise because it's bedtime here. I hope they won't turn into cries and screaming and all that. Anyway, so first, I love this graph. I was doing this this weekend, and I said, let's, because we usually take a part of this picture. And I said, let's expand it for the very beginning of MANRS. Yeah, let's see how much it's grown since it started, and it's been 100 times fold. Yeah, so it started with 13 original members. Now it's close to 1300. Yeah, it's 100 times more. So this is a very powerful chart. You see how, well, the blue one is the network operators, but then you see the orange coming in, which is the IXPs, and you also have CDN and cloud. And slowly, other vendors are still very slow, but this is a very, very powerful chart. Yeah. So this is the part where we, GCA, started working. So we've had in these last 2 years growth of 19.6%, which is about 10% every year on average. Last year was a bit higher than now, but the average is about 10%. That was our plans, and we're kind of delivering. Yeah. If we go program by program, we see that the network operators, it's grown a bit above the average. Cloud and IXPs a bit below the average, and we haven't had any changes in the equipment vendors. Yeah, that's something to explore. Yeah, and to see, analyze. In terms of countries or economies, as we call it. Yeah, of course, our number one participants are also the places where we're getting more new participants. So that's Brazil, United States. That's what the expectation, but it also shows that once you are into an ecosystem, it's easier to grow there. Yeah. So it's the word of mouth is very important here, and also having other peers and clients and hearing about it. Yeah. We also see interesting increased figures in the European Union, Germany, Netherlands, Italy, France. They're among the top countries in terms of increase, and that's also very interesting because, as I'll show later, the European Union is tracking the uptake of MANRS within the European Union, within the market. Yeah, and they do twice a year. They produce reports on the uptake of MANRS. So it's there's regulatory pressure probably and market pressure here in Europe to do this. Yeah, so you can also see that showing on the map. And then you have China, mainland, and China, Hong Kong. Also, if you put them together, it's a lot of increase. And we also have Japan, yes, with high numbers. If you realize it's the entire globe, we have people from all the RIR regions, and I'm very glad to see lots of African countries here. Yeah, they are many of them. They have 1 or 2 participants in the last 2 years, but it means that it's working, and it's been as global as it has to be. Yeah, and that's a very, when we were producing this, it was a very powerful chart. Yeah, this is just 2 years. As you know, we have participants, I would say that from almost every country in the world. Yeah, so it's good, but it keeps on growing. So if we focus on last year, 2025, you see that it's until the end of October, it's been 6.8. So that will be a bit below this 10%, but since last year was a bit higher than 10%, so the average is more or less 10%. Yeah, so it's that's more or less what we want to get. But as I will say now, we need more. We need to make it. This growth has to be more intense. Yeah, and this is we want to grow. So we have managed to grow by 10%, which is good. We have managed to grow in all RIRs, but we need help. Yeah, and that help that cannot come only from the Secretariat or the steering committee. It has to come from all the participants. Yes, word of mouth. Bring your peers, bring your clients. We're gonna send reminders in every newsletter every time we talk about this. We'll keep on insisting because it's very, very important, and it's working, as you can see, because number one countries were the US, Brazil. That's where we have the biggest number of participants. Yeah, the largest number of participants. So that was the situation in terms of MANRS participants. How has the routing security landscape changed for these 2 years? Yeah, we are, in this case, we are using the observatory, which is well, our own metrics, but they come from different sources. So it's a shared observatory. So this is what other bodies are also watching. So let's see how the key indicators have evolved in these 2 years. Yeah, this is the state of routing security. You have told, I think you can see them correctly. That was the status in December 2023. And this is, oops, now, no, October 2025, because we close the calendar months. So, well, it's hard to follow here, but you can see the evolution. For instance, number of incidents, the total number of incidents, there's been a reduction, yeah, from 829 in December 2023 to 389 in the last month. Number of culprits also, it has gone down significantly, yeah, minus 29.3%. IRR, the register IRRs going higher. This was already very high in 2 years ago, but it's gone a bit higher, so it's positive. Yeah, RPKI, it's a key indicator. It's also growing fast. We'll have Cecilia later, and she will share that. Well, it's not as easy as it seems, but it's growing, and RPKI is evolving positively around the globe. Yeah, ROVs also It's a significant change in just 2 years, huh? Remember. In terms of MANRS readiness, that's the other. If you are familiar with the observatory, you have like 2 blocks of indicators, yeah? Where is the graph that you are referring to? Can't you see it on the?
No, I just see your happy smiling face.
Jeff, there's another tab. You're looking at the meeting tab.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
So
can you see it now?
I must have a very old version of Zoom. I'll search around. Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem, no problem. And anybody, please interrupt. Yeah, if needed. Can you see it now, Jeff?
Yep, top of the screen.
Oh, okay.
Got it. Thanks.
So just for your awareness, so I'll move to this is the key indicators for state of routine security. Is the evolution. We just focus on the indicators. It's just figures. Of course, there could be a deeper analysis here. This is the MANRS readiness. Here, there's less change because most of them were already high. But in terms of RPKI, you see that is a significant increase. Yeah. So positive trends. RPKI and ROV, they clearly stand out among those figures. I think that's interesting. We cannot claim that this is just MANRS. We believe that MANRS is playing a role in all this, but it's also a question of industry awareness and a lot of collective effort. Yeah, but the trends are there and they are positive. So they are also a good reason for us to keep on working, yeah, and to expanding the mission. And as I was said a while ago, well, there's some crying, it's going to be on YouTube. The European Union is also tracking this, yeah, and it's very interesting. If you want to have a different perspective on these figures, they produce every 6 months approximately. They produce a new report, the MANRS uptake within the European Union, and they also compare it with other markets, yeah. So you can see this from the different angle. I have a link there. You have www. You can explore it yourself and you can see how they are measuring it. You can see that they are especially interested in the IXPs, which is also one of the biggest growing communities for us. Yeah, so it's well, just food for thought and to see things from a different perspective. In any case, in the last 2 years, we have positive trends in terms of participation and positive trends in terms of impact, but around the routine security issue as a whole. Yeah. So now let's talk about how active we've been out there, yeah, on the road. So this was 2024. It was a busy year. We visited in real life or virtually 18 countries. We covered all RIR regions. This is very important because we cannot be focusing on only one region. We have to be present all over the world, and that's the way MANRS works, and it should work. So we covered all them. And we also covered all the RIR meetings. That's the best place to meet us. That's where we always try to attend. But we also attended other types of meetings, yeah, that are not, in some cases, they're not specifically around network operations or routine security as a whole, yeah. And in 2025, these trends were even more intense. Yeah, we were doing even more of this. Yeah. We organized 2 community meetings, 2 webinars. The steering committee has met 5 times. There's 1 more meeting coming. We're working on the dates for that, a doodle. 2 voting processes. We've visited 20 countries, which is a lot. Look at the Americas. I mean, the Americas is the #1 continent for MANRS, and well, it also shows in the activity we're doing. And when I say we here, it's everybody around the community. It's not only the Secretariat, it's also the steering committee members. Our LACNIC members have been very active in that sense, and also training opportunities and things that we all get invited to participate. Yeah, Tony, I think you covered MOG, so there's been a bit of everything. Yeah, in this case, first was also very interesting and well, a lot of activities, and you can see all around the world again, and that's what we want to keep on doing. Another way of seeing the impact of what we do is through comms. Comms, we have, you can go as deep as you want. It's a rabbit hole, yeah, to get metrics on website visits and all that, yeah. But we don't want to spend too much time on that. But we are focusing on LinkedIn. That's the place where we get more engagement and where it's easier to see who is reacting to what we do and who posts, who comments, and that's where also where people that organize things around MANRS, they share it with us, yeah, so that we become aware of those activities. So LinkedIn is growing. The number of followers we have now is 3,342, at least yesterday. If we compare it to 1 year ago, it's plus 11%, which is higher in terms of growth and the growth of participants. And for the newsletter, that's where we inform everybody quarterly on our activities. The growth has been plus 15.2, which is close to 1,500 subscribers. Yeah, it's very interesting, and we get a lot of engagement through that. We, as you know, beginning of the year, we migrated. We were using MailChimp. We stopped doing that. Now we are distributed through the mailing list and also through LinkedIn. There's been like a reshuffling of users, but I think the LinkedIn platform is working well in that sense, even though some of the participants were not very happy about the change, but well, we are still using the mailing list for that, so it's, you need to share your privacy and all that, yeah. So the other social media, they're also growing, except for Facebook, where we lost 4 people. I don't know why, lost 4 people. X is the number 1 there. It's close to 5,000 at this moment. We were a bit over 4,000 1 year ago, which is, again, it's positive growth, even though it's not growing as a platform that much. And on YouTube, also some smaller growth, which that's where all the MANRS community meetings are posted. Of course, you have the blog, the quarterly newsletters, the MANRS community mailing list, and this, again, we say that all the time. Please be active. Please share posts with us, share your research papers, contact us to speak. Some of you have done it. Sofía, TJ, you wanted to speak, here you are. You shared your papers, your posts. We are really happy about that, because that's the sense of community. That's what we want to build. So yeah, basically, we've been on the ground visiting a lot of countries. We've attended the RIR meetings, but also other types of meetings. That's and also the growth through social media is important. And this, we believe, has some connection with the increased participation in our decision-making process, and the voting processes. We had 9 volunteers for the latest steering committee elections, so that's a good figure. Turnout was high, also for the charter review, which was a very important moment in the recent history of the initiative. It had very good turnout figures, so it's excellent, yeah, because that's precisely what makes it more stronger review, yeah. So, well, those are growing, and we want to believe that it's also connected with this work with you on the ground. So, oops, sorry, going backwards. So, looking into this was the past. Now let's look into the future. What's going to happen next? So first, since I was covering the period, yeah, since GCA got the Secretariat to now, 2024 was a year of transition. That's when this huge community came onto us, and there was lots of adaptation and trying to continue things the way they were. 2025 has been a year of preparation for the future. This is why we had the MDP, the MANRS development process, which is the standardization process. We reviewed the charter, and we also had significant progress in the MANRS Plus working group, yeah, with the matrix and this idea of moving gradually to an enterprise program, yeah. We've had good figures in terms of growth and uptake, but they've been mostly organic, so arising from the community. So we would like to steer some action and to push for some more growth there. And this is why, well, we want to do some sort of plan as we move ahead for 2026 and onwards. This plan has like 4 pillars. One of them is standardization and transparency. That's the MDP. Now we are planning to take the MDP to all the actions. The MDP has been used for the charter review for the first time, but we want to use it also for the actions, so that they become, they follow a real standardization process where the community is involved and participates actively. We also want to, the second pillar is geography. We have to reach there where we are not present. We are covering all RIRs and a lot of countries, but we have to go a bit deeper into those countries, and we have to go to countries where we've never been, or we want to grow, yeah. In that case, we're exploring this. If you remember, some of you, I think, not on this call, but in the previous call, we had some previous ambassadors or champions. Would like to reactivate that. We are at this moment having internal discussions on how to wrap it before we take it to the steering committee and then to the community as a whole. We also want to revisit all the training materials. We are working on that also with the steering committee, going through the materials we have and trying to update it and give them like revamping them and giving some more visibility. And also we want to increase our engagement with local and regional actors. Yeah, that's the RIRs, the NOCs, all those organizations that we want to. That's the only way to get deeper into some markets and some areas. Also, the third pillar is the supply chain protection. That's, well, we were working on MANRS Plus. This was a working group, and now we have the matrix. We have a test bed that was presented this morning with SID and labs. And now we want to maybe move to a full new program, which will be the MANRS Enterprise. There are challenges here. We are discussing them. We are trying to frame it, but that's one of the ideas we're exploring for next year. Yeah, it's a new way of increasing the impact of MANRS as a whole. And the last item is the sustainability. Yeah, I think you have received a message this morning. Many of you would have received it, and we presented it in the previous session. We started a sponsoring campaign. This is not a fee to be participants. Participation will be free of charge. That's very important. We want to keep it like that because that's the only way to grow and the only way to make it meaningful. But we are opening the opportunity for those who want to contribute to sustain the initiative through a voluntary sponsoring structure. Yeah, we have 6 tiers that start very small, 1,500. That's basically the admin needed to process all that. And that once we want to have smaller network operators, smaller players also present in the sponsorship. It's not a question of having the big names only. Yeah, we want to also have everybody that wants to have a chance to showcase or to present their commitment to the initiative. They can do it. Yeah, and starting from 1,500 and going all the way to $250,000 yeah, US dollars. There is all the materials are there. You saw it through the mailing list. We are open for feedback. Tony gave some feedback. We incorporated some of your thoughts into the language. We've had feedback from the steering committee, and some people have seen it, and we really want to hear from you. Yeah, if you decide to participate, just step up and do it. Here's the description of the different tiers and different visibility options you get. So it's a question of showing commitment. Yeah, and as I said, it's not going to be a requirement for participation. Participation will always be will be free as long as we can keep it free. Yeah, that's the idea. So yeah, and this is open for anybody from nothing. So if you want to stay a participant and don't need to pay anything, to 250K a year. And yeah, that is a final call. Yeah, so different levels or nothing, and then you can decide. But making your commitment visible, I think it's going to be important for the future of the initiative. If you want to keep on growing, as we are growing and want to grow further, we will need that kind of long-term sustainability. Okay, and that's my part. I think I made it even shorter than before. So I don't know if there's any questions this time.
Yeah. Any reaction to anything that Alejandro presented or you've heard today or heard elsewhere in discussions about MANRS? Well, you can also type into the chat, but there aren't any right now. Obviously, there's still the mailing list where you can strike up discussions and you can reach us. All right, should we move on with other things?
Yes, we can move so that people have a chance to speak. To the insights into routing security part. Yeah. So do you want to present it? Or should I?
If I can share my screen, that would be great.
Yes, sorry, I will. That's Sofia. So, well, when we were organizing the agenda for this, we wanted to have some focus on barriers to RPKI adoption. And we have 4 speakers on that. Let me just stop sharing now. Stop share. Okay, that's all yours now.
Thank you so much. Okay. So hello, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Sofia. I am the program manager for the NRO RPKI program. And I wanted to talk about a new resource. It's a very small step, but a new page we have published that we are hoping will help network operators. Before I get there, though, I was conscious maybe not everyone would know what the NRO is or what I'm talking about when I talk about the RPKI program. So I included this one slide to share with everyone. The NRO is the number resource organization that brings together the 5 regional internet registries that Alejandro was referring to in his presentation. Basically, the idea is to actively contribute to an open, stable, and secure internet, and they do that through different initiatives. In particular, in the technical space, they do work in technical coordination. And for a couple of years now, we have been actively working under this new program, the RPKI program, with the purpose of providing a more consistent and uniformly secure, resilient, and reliable RPKI service. For this year, we were working under 2 main objectives. The first one more focused on the back end of the RPKI system, aiming at enhancing the transparency, robustness, and security of the RPKI system. And the main piece of work under this first objective is working on a formal specification to communicate the constraints on internet number resources for each RPKI trust anchor. So if you are involved in CyberOps in IETF, you may have heard a couple of weeks ago, well, before the cutoff for the last IETF meeting, we submitted a new draft. The idea is that this draft proposes a solution. And this is very, very early stages, so it will still evolve. We are in conversations. We have received feedback from the community, and we're discussing what's the best way of approaching this. But basically, the idea is to address some concerns regarding the current trust anchor configuration, with each RIR having their own trust anchor. So as I mentioned, the draft has been submitted. It was presented last week in Montreal. And there will be more discussion happening in the mailing list in the next IETF. So if you are not participating already, we would like to invite the broader technical community to join the discussion in CyberOps. Then our other big objective for this year is more in the space of the front end, let's say, the user experience on RPKI, and trying to increase the consistency there. So the piece of work that I will be talking about for the rest of my presentation is under this objective. There was another piece of work we did that still requires a publication of a roadmap before the end of the year, but we agreed on what should be the core and nice to have RPKI services and features across the 5 RIRs. So we have now agreed on a list of those that were shared as part of a blog article a few months ago. But as I mentioned, before the end of the year, we will share a roadmap through the NRO website with the target dates for those core RPKI services and features by when all the RIRs will be offering them. And then also in the NRO website, we have published a content repository. We realized that each RIR has their own documentation and different RPKI related content that we thought could be useful for network operators that interact with more than one RIR to bring together in some way. Similarly, for best practices and lessons learned, each RIR does their own RPKI training and have different documentation where best practices are mentioned. So we collected into a single document and had the conversations about what is it that we want to really agree on and publish jointly. So there is another page that is linked from my slides, which I hope will be available for people to click on later. And then the focus of this presentation today is the last page we published through the NRO website that is about the process of creating ROAS through each RIR portal. So we do acknowledge that each RIR has slightly different processes for the creation of ROAS. And when network operators manage resources across multiple RIRs because they may have presence in multiple regions. They will be interacting with different member portals, sometimes slightly different terminology, and the process in itself, the user experience of creating a ROA, maybe sometimes slightly different. And we understand that that can be confusing and time consuming. If you are used to using one member portal and you have to start using a new one, there may be changes that or differences that you need to adjust to. And we understand this may be a barrier to broader RPKI adoption. But we also wanted to acknowledge that RIRs, are the main source of truth for the information about each of them. And we did not want to create duplication and become another confusing source of truth. So we created a very simple page that brings together the authoritative documentation for each RIR in terms of how to create a ROA through the portal. So this is for hosted mode. And also how to get support in case you need that. And at the bottom of that page, which is not shown in the screenshot, but if you visit the page and you scroll down, there is also a table that summarizes the differences. And there are some differences that were minor, may not create a big impact, but there were some differences in how things are referred to or how the steps to be taken as part of the process that we summarized in that page as well. And as I mentioned, we know this is a very small step, but we are hoping it's a meaningful step that will help network operators to navigate this ecosystem of portals a bit easier and making it more transparent and hopefully ultimately more consistent across regions. We are always asking for feedback. You may have seen a blog article about this was posted through the MANRS community, but also through the RIRs. Same when we posted the best practices and lessons learned, I sent some emails to relevant mailing lists asking for input because we want to make sure these documents are operationally relevant and useful for the community. So if you want to explore the new page and share your feedback, that would be great. The email of the RPKI program that you can see on the screen comes to me directly, so feel free to reach out. We are always happy to receive feedback and have conversations with members of the community. And that's it for me, very short presentation. If there's any comments or questions, happy to take them now. Don't see anything in the chat.
Thanks very much for all this work. One thing that I can't remember when I looked at the document that you came up with, if I gave you the feedback or not, but I thought about it and have mentioned it in a couple of other forums, is which may help people, is if they create if they find that a BGP announcement that they're making is invalid unintentionally through a mismatch with an existing ROA, I think a good piece of advice is create a ROA that matches. Instead of trying to remove one that is causing the invalidation, the quickest path to getting the updates flowing again is to create a new ROA that matches, and then you can worry about the cleaning up later if anything's needed there. But because I think people, in a sort of normal way of working with computers and stuff is to think about, oh, well, I put something in that's wrong, I got to remove it. And given the way RPKI works, it's removing it is, and having that deletion propagate it takes a little while, whereas it's much quicker to create one that matches. And as long as one matches, then everything.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I've taken a note and I'm happy to pass that along. I guess that there's always considerations around the different levels of understanding of what people are doing, the different users that create ROAs. And when you make it very easy to just create a ROA to fix it, I've seen that the different portals behave slightly different, but when there are suggestions, we have to be careful around making sure the user understands what they are doing. And if it is a hijack, from our perspective, we don't know. So only the user knows whether it was unintentional or the mismatch is because of a hijack. Right. But yeah, when you know it was unintentional and you realize you've made a mistake, right. I guess with the right warnings in place,
Right.
that would make sense. But thanks for that. I've taken a note on that. Thank
Yeah,
you,
right.
Tony.
I guess that's right, a subtle caveat. You don't want to enable an update that really shouldn't, that's by mistake. You don't want to just sort of leave it sticking around if it's actually a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has questions or comments on the great work that's going on with the NRO RPKI program. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Alejandro, yeah, who's next? Cecilia. Excellent.
If you can see me now. Can you see me now?
I can see you, and I can see the slide with Cecilia.
Yeah, and I have Alberto. I see him there. I don't know if I haven't seen Cecilia herself. I really don't like. My God, sorry, I've lost Zoom now.
Well, we can see.
You can see me.
I'm
I think
online from our lab, but Cecilia is not here, so we're assuming that he's joining separately.
Okay. So where is everybody? I've lost everybody.
Well,
we
maybe
can. Yeah, sorry.
Steve is saying that he could do his presentation while we're waiting for us.
Yes, so I will move to, let me change the slides.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Let's forward.
Actually, so I need to share my screen.
Yeah, there you are.
So if you stop sharing.
Yes, stop sharing. All yours. Sorry about the mess.
That's all right. Okay, greetings. I'm going to do a fairly quick presentation, so we have plenty of time for the other presenters. Internet2 and CADA have been working on a tool to assist people in planning their RPKI ROAs. It's an experimental service at this point, and I need to say users should not solely rely on its output as the final authority for your required ROAs. And if you have comments, we'd love to hear them. You can send them to me. So, oops. What we've learned. So based on assisting other organizations with ROA planning, and we've assisted dozens, if not 100 or more. These have been mostly Internet2 community organizations. So this has been campuses, city and state governments, regional networks, service providers, K through 12 schools, hospitals, etc. What we've learned is while most of the network operators require a single or a simple ROA per IP network, a considerable number require something a little bit more complex. And importantly, these network operators aren't always equipped to understand which category they're in. In other words, they may not know, oh, a simple ROA, just basically basing many of these have /16, and they just announce the 16 from one origin AS. And so that's a pretty simple ROA to create. And many of them fall in that category, but many don't. And they're what we find is they're not necessarily good judges of which category they fit into. And so some assistance is helpful. Some of the things that we see that make an organization's ROAs a little more complex, and these are real examples of things we've run into in assisting people. They might have a what we call a cold site. In other words, this is a disaster recovery site where they're going to announce either some or all of their IP space differently than they announce it every day. So if you just looked at the current routing table, you would not see an example of this. Yet at the most important time during some sort of disaster recovery incident, they need this to work. You may not see this in the current routing table, yet they need to have ROAs that accommodate this. If they subscribe to DDoS scrubbing services, it can be the case that their ROAs are a little more complicated. Especially with campuses, we find that they have periodic events. So they might have a football game or some sort of scheduled event that's remote where they actually use their own IP addresses, and maybe they announce a subnet from a different location. So you may be seeing a more specific announced or more specific from a different origin AS. And this is a temporary occurrence. And so when they're making the ROAs, the people making the ROAs might not think of this, or in fact, they may not be aware of it. Some of these organizations do on-demand traffic engineering, where they might announce more specifics sporadically. Some have plans to bring their own IP addresses to a public cloud, and in which case you need ROAs to accommodate those. And one thing I'll give an example of is many in our community have /16s for IPv4 /32 for IPv6, and they have subassigned addresses to different organizations. And so that can make it more complicated. So if you have a /16 and you're operating a network, multiple campuses where you've actually subassigned these addresses to different campuses that have different origin ASs, that can make creating ROAs more complicated, because the holder of the overall addresses, at least today, is responsible for making those ROAs. So in January, we built a tool we used internally to help inform us when we advise someone in our community making ROAs. And we developed a tool that looked at sort of the current and historical routes for that prefix. What are the regional internet registry reassignments for that prefix? And what are the route objects, the IRR route objects? So maybe there's something we don't see in the routing history, but it is represented in an IRR route object that suggests there may be a different form in this route that might be valid. And so we had an internal tool. We decided to make it a public-facing web tool. We call it the ROA Planner, and it collects information from current and past network announcements. We get this from both Ripstead and route views. Importantly, for our community, we get a view that includes, there are approximately 2,600 ASs worldwide. They're part of sort of the higher education research networking environment. And there are frequently more specifics that are announced in that environment. So we get data from a number of sources on what the routes normally look like. We look at IRR route objects and RIR assignments. We get these from Aaron, but we use Aaron's service that gives us these assignments from all the RIRs. And then we collect all this and we calculate what are the full set of ROAs to cover all of these as though they were potential valid route announcements. Now, in many cases, they're not all potential route announcements, but we let the user in this tool sort of unselect things that should not be considered in the set of ROAs that could be created to fully cover these. Okay, so I'll show you really quick what the tool looks like. And I'm going to put in a simple one that actually has ROAs right now. So this is Indiana University's one of their /16s. And you'll notice that if you looked at the required ROAs to cover this, it's 0, and the single prefix ROAs to cover this is 0. In other words, this space already has all the ROAs. It's fully covered. And this is the kind of output. So we have routing history, including how many days old a particular instance is, IRR records, and their current ROA status. So this is the case where a campus has already created their ROAs and they don't need any more. The next case is, this is actually a /32 v6 allocation. This is part of Internet 2's address space. And this is some unfinished work on our part. So over the years, we received this allocation, I think close to 20 years ago. And at the time, Internet 2 did a number of reassignments to other organizations. And if you look on the right-hand column, this is the ROA status for each of these rows. And a row might be a route that exists today. So this route is 0 days old. So this is an actual route that exists today. And its origin AS and its current row status not found. Other things are route objects. So this is a route object that was created a couple years ago for the /32. Looks very similar to the route we see. And here's some routing history for other more specifics. And you'll see if you look on the right-hand side, a number of these are valid and a number are not found. And if you look at these tabs, it says, well, what are the rows required to make every route that we've seen in the past? And if you pretend that there are routes for the IRR route objects, if you wanted to make them all valid, these would be the ROAs you would need to create. These are the multi-prefix ROAs you would need to create to make all of those valid. And if you just want to make single prefix ROAs, here are all the single prefix ROAs you would need to make all those valid. Now, you might not want to do that. Maybe you only want to consider routes that are that we have seen in the internet that are less than 100 days old. And so you could say, well, I want to reduce the number of routes. I don't want to consider stuff that's older than 100 days because I don't think those are actually really represent routes that need ROAs. So you have some knobs that you can turn, or you can individually select or deselect these rows and have it calculate the rows that are needed to cover those. In the case where you've done reassignments, it also shows you the point of contacts for the reassignments. And so, for example, if I wanted to create a ROA for this /40 that Internet 2 has reassigned to SOX, which is a regional network in the US, I probably want to contact the people at SOX to tell them I'm doing this. And so we have a pop-up that lists the technical contacts, in this case it's just one, for that particular reassignment. And I can copy them to my clipboard. So if it's easier to make an email, sometimes there are several of these as technical contacts. So briefly, this is a tool that looks at routing history, IRR route objects, RIR assignments, lets you pick which ones are relevant, shows you the rows that are needed, both in multi-row format and or multi-prefix format and single prefix rows. So we've launched this. It's roa-planner.internet2.edu. Still an experimental service, but we expect this to be up, and we'd love to hear people's feedback from it. And that's all I had to present.
Okay. Thanks for that, Steve. It's really good stuff and hopefully helpful to the community. I took a look at it when you let me know or announced it recently, and it was initially confused by the age of some of the things. I looked because luckily you can navigate to our what do you call it, ripe stat, or to the ripe routing information service page for a given prefix that you find there to see, oh, okay, when was it announced? And I was like, oh, some of these things are like 10 years old. How why is that showing there? It's misleading me, and you let me know that yeah, you can actually filter those out. So and that it's part of your thinking was, okay, maybe maybe this was on an alternative path or what have you, that's or it's part of a DDoS mitigation service that where you might want to make that valid should it come back into the routing table, and so give the user the broadest possible view. And Sylvia's okay, so just looking in the chat, I mean, anybody can speak up or raise their hand or what have you if you want to ask a question or discuss.
Happy to, Tony, so
Okay,
you don't
yeah.
have to read.
Okay, so
I was just typing while I was listening to you that I was thinking the same when I looked at some announcements being so old. I thought, is that really useful? And then when Stephen showed that can be filtered by age, I think that's a great feature. I was just thinking that maybe that could be a default feature. I don't know what makes sense operationally. Maybe you need to get feedback from network operators on that, but I don't know if a year would make sense. So by default, you show what's been seen in the last year with some information and message saying if you want to see even older information, you can remove that filter instead of by default showing everything. Just an idea.
That's good. We've actually had that discussion internally. So yeah, I think we'll put something in that hopefully is a good choice in terms of the normal cutoff.
Yeah, or maybe like a color coding or a shading for things, according to their age, so that the ones that are older, say past a month, they're shaded this way, past 6 months another way, past a year or 5 years, they're some other way.
Good idea. Yeah.
Make it just, so it's so you don't have to necessarily read the number. The number, maybe just, there's a lot of pieces of information in that one column that shows a number. Might not be one that catches your eye so readily, but the shading can show you, oh, okay, there's something different about these or what have you.
The other thing that I didn't highlight, there's certain origin ASs, there's certain IRR route objects that are created by DDoS scrubbing providers, and there's one particular company where we flag that if there's a route object from them, then you really have to talk to other people to determine the rows you need to create. So there's no way to collect information from. I know of no way. And it is a higher ed thing, but higher ed's a pretty. I mean, it's there are potentially 1,000 ASs that are affected by this, and we do highlight that. Yeah.
Well, so when you say the rows are created by the DDoS mitigation service, wouldn't it be that they're created by the address holder?
Sorry. The route objects are created by the DDoS mitigation service.
Route objects are.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Jeff has his hands up.
Yeah. If you're using this for DDoS mitigation, what is your expectation of the time lag between publishing a ROA and seeing it in BGP?
So I can tell you so this is a frequent conversation we have with our community. So many in our community do have dynamic DDoS mitigation services. And we talk to them about this and we say, propagation of a ROA might take 10 minutes to an hour, or it could take longer. There's no guarantee. And most organizations that have DDoS mitigation services that result in a ROA, result in needing a ROA that has a max length, or it comes from a different origin AS, they go ahead and create ROAs that will accommodate scrub traffic. So the fact that there would be an indeterminate delay is that they go ahead and say, okay, fine, I'm going to create the max length ROA or some other ROA rather than to try to dynamically. Now, there are some
So
to say that
they predefine, so they're right, they in advance they publish a ROA that will enable the mitigation, is what you're saying.
right, and I'd say that's the vast majority. There are a few that say we'll go ahead and dynamically create a ROA, and we'll take the delay.
Right. Well, I do an experiment where I basically flick a route between valid and invalid across 6-hour intervals. And the problem, of course, is that when you try and negate a route by making it invalid, the slowest of the relying parties that are picking up this determine the timing of the removal. Because the way BGP works, if I have, 5 possible routes, and 4 of them disappear within 3 seconds, that doesn't help. Because as long as the 5th route is still there and hasn't changed state, it's still up and available. And what you actually find is, while the time to turn on an advertisement, to flick something from unknown to valid or invalid to invalid, invalid to valid, is quite fast, because that's the trigger time of the first. So the quicker the relying parties throb at the publication points, the faster the system for turning it on. But the problem is that turning it off, i.e., denial, as in DOS, actually relies on the slowest of the relying parties and the longest intervals. And the issue is that is, as you point out, highly indeterministic. And if you really are trying to get fast response on DDoS, this is not a very good tool to do that.
So this isn't intended to be a tool to improve the response to ROAs, and typically what they need is a new route accepted, not one denied. So when they're being DDoSed, it is uncommon for the solution of that to be deny some route. What they want is a more specific route introduced to draw that traffic to a scrubbing center. And so that the additional ROA is to permit a route, a more specific route that'll draw it to a scrubbing center. And like I said, the vast majority just go ahead and create the ROA that allows that, rather than building it out dynamically, because they don't know how long that's going to take.
It sounds safer to me. I'm actually just thinking of the issue where I'm following the aggregate and I am taking some time to pick up the permissive ROA for the more specific to redirect the traffic. And until such a time, the more specific route gets blocked by the aggregate, doesn't it?
Right, until the ROA is propagated. And like I said,
right. So oddly enough, the more specific timing is still dependent on the slowest of the folk who frob away at the publication points.
Right, and that's why the vast majority go ahead and create a ROA that permits the more specific at the essentially reducing the effectiveness of the ROA somewhat. It's a compromise.
Well, it is, but the issue is, DDoS is often a here and now problem, and ROAs are not a here and now solution. Oddly enough, in either case, the more specifics is much the same as invalidation. It takes time for the slowest of the pollers to actually pick up the information. And if you really want to get into it, I think over the years we have learned that flooding through unconstrained polling is a lousy way to distribute information. And the entire kind of RPKI publication point dissemination, which relies on polling, is perhaps it was a bad design choice because it doesn't focus on responsiveness. So that's an area where I think we could improve, but the improvements are not to poll more frequently. That just causes overload. Improvements in terms of notifications and more targeted forms of information distribution. But I digress.
Yeah, I look forward to the discussion on a future community call.
Yeah, no problems.
Presentation. But Steve, thanks for the work. I see Brad also had a question. He likes the simplicity, Brad Gorman from Aaron. Are there any thoughts into searching on the RGNAS as an alternative to the prefix? Right, that would be taking all the published, well, you get the idea.
So Brad, I'll meet with you tomorrow and we can talk about that.
All right. And then you can present also at the next community meeting. Sounds like we're making great progress. And I see Cecilia has joined. So that was so I think any other questions about Steve and the work of Steve and the Internet 2 folks? Okay. Welcome, Cecilia. Sorry, our timing whatever might have gotten departed at some point from the published
agenda. Yeah, I requested to yes, share my screen.
And there you've got the power.
So
Excellent.
welcome. Yeah, I don't know. You want to say something before?
No, looking forward to seeing you.
So I wanted to share with you some of the results that we had on very recent work on RPKI adoption. I was told we didn't have much time, so my presentation is fairly packed. But the good thing is that Steve introduced very similar concepts right before, so I'll be able to move on faster on that time. So part of the motivation for the research that we've been doing is that there's a clear consensus that RPKI is really beneficial for routing security. And that consensus comes from part of industry. And here I kind of put some snapshots of where industry has made up blog posts or even reports showcasing the benefits of RPKI. But also these comes from governments that are seeing the benefits of RPKI, and I put in there two things, one from the Dutch government pushing RPKI in their own networks, and also from the FCC in the US supporting broader RPKI adoption. So kind of given that this is happening and that there's proof of the benefits of RPKI, what has been on our heads is like, why is there still then adoption doesn't go faster, or why we're still kind of at 50% of adoption on the ROAS side and a little bit less on the root origin validation side? So our motivation is really how can we support RPKI adoption to really get to higher levels, given the benefits that it have? And we've divided that question in like trying to look at the barriers. So what have been the barriers towards RPKI adoption? And also because now RPKI has a certain level of adoption, what have been approaches that have been successful? And from that, trying to understand really what are targeted efforts that can be done that are really going to support a broader adoption of RPKI. So we've tackled these questions in my lab from two different perspectives, from qualitative and quantitative research methodology. So I've been leading a user study of network operators, where I've interviewed network operators that have been substantially involved in RPKI decision network making in their network. These are the people that have driven the adoption in their networks, the ones that have decided how RPKI gets integrated with their network operation, and that have also, for example, decided how the structure of the data is going to be handled if they're doing root origin validation, how the whole system is designed, how many software tools are needed, and really how the RPKI is integrated with the routing. And on the other side, I've been also leading a longitudinal measurement study combining BGP data, WHOIS data, IP delegation, RI data, which ends up in actually doing something very similar to what Steve showed, but also from that perspective, analyzing at a higher level, what efforts would it take to bring the, for example, the prefixes that we see that are currently routed not in RPKI to get them in RPKI. So something that we saw very quickly getting into this, that even though in the ROA side, for example, we're about at 50% adoption, actually adoption is not really uniform. It really varies by the region, and this depends a little bit on RIRs. It varies by the size of the network. It varies by the type of the networks, because there's many networks that are enterprise networks whose main business model is not at all internet related, and they still have ASS or they have IP prefixes. And also it depends on the complexity of IP delegation. So in the most extreme cases, like the smaller a network is, the less likely it is to adopt RPKI. The non-ISP type networks are much less likely to adopt RPKI. And the pieces of address space that have very complex delegation are less likely to be covered by ROAS. However, at the level of adoption that RPKI have, we have something good, that even in those more extreme cases, we have cases that they have been able to adopt RPKI. So there, the question is like, why are these barriers, and then how we can overcome those barriers? And through combining both studies, the in-depth interviews plus the measurement, basically we're finding that there are the 4 key areas that are very relevant for RPKI adoption, and I'll spend some time going through them in this presentation. So first, RPKI is intrinsically linked to IP resource management, which in hindsight, it may appear kind of obvious because the RIRs are the ones that delegate the address space and are also the trust anchor for the RPKI. But more than that, all the key distribution for certificate issuance in RPKI and most of the signing and hosting is done by RIR, and it's managed by the IP management portal of RIRs. So any challenges that are linked to IP management portal are inherited by RPKI. And I'll, after going through this, I'll show you a few examples of how this has come up in the interviews. Second, awareness and training play a critical role in RPKI adoption. And again, this may appear evident as with any new technology. Of course, for adoption, people need to become aware and have some training. But the challenge with RPKI is that the requirement is much more widespread than current training channels, and that it requires knowledge for very different domain. So even for networking experts, it's non-trivial or not necessarily, they're not necessarily going to be very knowledgeable in RPKI. And again, I'm going to pull up some examples of how this showed up in the interviews. Then we also see that software tools are critical to integrate RPKI with network operation. And in this place, even if RIRs have significantly improved their tooling with, for example, API access and similar things, RPKI still requires a lot of in-house development that takes time. And a lot of the organization, for them to be able to adopt RPKI, they realize that the first need these software tools, so they spend time developing this tool, and then they move to implementation of RPKI. And in this process, there's a little bit of a lot of reinventing the wheel. Like many networks have developed this in-house, and they're all working on similar projects without much communication between them. And the other piece in there is that there's critical parts of the tooling for RPKI software that are open source, and there are very few options. And this is also a big concern for operators. So some of the operators, even for them to reliably count on RPKI, end up recoding some of these pieces of software. And finally, given RPKI can really impact routing, a lot of the organizations to adopt RPKI, they first need to understand how and when they're going to be able to see if RPKI caused any problems and how to debug them and what are their tools to do, and understand all of these during the decision making for adopting RPKI, and then also for continual operation. Because in actually both cases, for ROAS and for ROV, we see cases of organizations that have adopted them, and then they went back because they figured out that they couldn't reliably manage them, and then they went back on adoption. So to give you a few examples of how these show up in resource management, IP resource management has a long history and complex history as the internet developed not all the procedures are today in place were in place before, and it's a really big challenge with record keeping. And here is a quote from one of the interviewees, is that because of these years and years of IP allocations of very poor record keeping, it's a very big challenge to know what are the resources that their network is responsible for issuing ROAs. And this poor record keeping can even be extended to the account, like what is the name of the account, who is the manager of the account, the password for the account. And then these organizations need to go through a whole process to recover their accounts that includes additional cost and additional time, and many of them are just not willing to go through that. So that really is a current barrier for RPKI adoption. Then on the awareness and training perspective, a lot of the interviews recognized that in their teams, even they had a lot of network experts, that didn't mean that they would be familiar with RPKI. So they had to educate a lot of the people, even within the network environment, about how RPKI work and reassure them that they could integrate it with the operation. But also what we realized in the interviews is that the awareness and training didn't end up there. A lot of the people that were responsible for RPKI in the organization, they spent significant time doing education for the upper management to get their buy-in, or the buy-in for specific reasoning in how they designed their approach to RPKI. And that took a lot of effort and time. And finally, by the way, this is not only upper management. Depending on the organizations, it could even be things like the sales team, because the sales team is really related to how they deal with IP. And depending on which customer have the IP, that has impact on RPKI. So there's a whole broader set of people that needs to have awareness and training in RPKI to properly integrate this in the organization. And finally, what came up with especially larger networks that have customers that have their own address space is that some of those customer are organizations that are not at all related to networking. And these organizations are really unaware of RPKI, and they have no much integration with the world of networking. So this came up as an example of how do you make people aware about NANOG. They don't know about NANOG, but you can replace NANOG by any other venues, usual networking venues. And how do those enterprise or other type of organization that own address space and ASS get aware and training on RPKI? And sometimes they can be very small. So that other fun part of the quote is like how to reach out to Joe Bates and tackle internet service. So those two challenges are very big, and I will guide you to, at the end of the presentation, there are the links to this paper for more quotes and interaction with these organizations related to the other points, the software tools and the tooling, because I'm going to switch more to the measurement perspective that also talks about the software tools for RPKI and incident detection. So building on what Steve presented, I'm going to now go more quickly. Oh, by the way, sorry, I forgot that. Another thing that actually came out from the interviews, and sorry for this back and forth, is that actually RIRs can play a pivotal role in these things. Because other than managing RPKI, they create this community and they create different instances where a lot of these issues can be addressed. And actually, we see that certain RIRs have taken more of those options compared to other RIRs. So that's why this is published in a paper that says that the role that RIRs have in RPKI adoption. And the link is here, and you'll have the presentations, and you can access for more details on this study. There is, okay. So to now go more towards the measurement perspective, this is an example that I have that explains a lot of things that Steve already explained on how to issue a ROA. So I'm going to move very quickly. So in here, this example, we also have like a prefix that is a /20 that has an origin AS. And initially we think, okay, this is fairly easy to issue a ROA. We just need to figure out who can issue this ROA, and we can find that, for example, in WHOIS data, and we have, okay, this organization can issue the ROA, and it's very simple ROA. However, because the moment there is a ROA for this /20, any sub-prefixes would be covered by the ROA, these can impact more specific routes of this. So first, if you don't want to create problems for other routes, you need to check if there are more specific prefixes being announced. And in this case, yes, there are two more specific in this block. And sometimes they may be found with different origin. And if they have different origin, it means that they need some other ROAs. So in this example, for this prefix to be covered by a ROA, at least 3 ROAs are needed to prevent any disruption to these prefixes. And then also, if there are these more specific route, maybe this route relate to a given customer that manages that route separately and maybe decides on which origin AS is originating that route. So there needs to be a coordination with the other, if there are other organizations involved, and in this case, the sub-prefixes indeed are subdelegated to another organization, so there needs to be coordination. So indeed, the ROA planning can start being much more complex due to these multiple factors. And you can add on all the other factors that Steve mentioned, such as the DDoS scrubber and other organizations that use some sort of record keeping related to routing. So because we come up on all of these and we started analyzing all the prefixes that were not routed, we come up with a framework to guide on what are the questions and what is a good procedure to issue the ROAs. And we actually even communicate with different operators and RIRs to make sure to have some back and forth that our framework made sense on how to think about issuing the ROAs. So then in our research, we realized that, of course, to answer this framework and decide how to issue the ROA, we actually do need the data. And we work in something very similar that Steve did to put together the data that is needed to start answering these questions. And we put that together in a data set that we're making accessible through a dashboard that is called Are You RPKI Ready?, where you can search the prefixes that are not covered by RPKI. And then our dashboard is going to provide some of the information that is needed to issue the ROAs, in particular the organization that holds the key that allows signing for the certificate. Then if there are other organizations that were subdelegated pieces of address space that most likely require coordination for the issuance, and the subprefixes that we see in the past 12 months that relate to the prefix that would be covered by ROAs. So we're in the process of getting this dashboard up and running and publicly available. So we've had some challenges in making publicly available, but the data set that feeds this dashboard is actually already published, and you can have the data for all the prefixes that are currently routed, that were routed in September, that are not covered by RPKI. You can get all this information at once if you download the data set. And then with our data sets, we are also able to propose how the ROA configuration should be for some of the prefixes. And here is continuing with that example. These are the sub-prefixes that were all routed with the same origin for that prefix. And then there's more ROAs with the different other origin. And this also gives, depending on the sub-prefixes, we also give a ranking of which ROAs should be issued first to prevent having connectivity issues in case a ROA is pushed before the other ones. So in our research, we don't stop here. We actually, because we have the data for all the prefixes, we also analyze these at a higher level to try to figure out what are the different challenges for prefixes that need to, that are not currently covered by ROAs. So I'm gonna show you here the breakdown for IPv4 prefixes, but we also do this for IPv6, and I'll put the information on the paper where you can go and see this information. So if we start for all from the routed IPv4 prefixes that are not currently in RPKI, very first thing that we see is that there's some of them that are not at all in the RPKI tree. And by that, what I mean is that those pieces of addresses are not in the resource certificate that provides the key to be able to sign a ROA for that prefix. And we investigate that further, and we figure out that of that about 30%, so the 27.2, a significant chunk of it is legacy address space, and this has been known that being a challenge of legacy address space needing to sign a legal agreement with certain RIRs to be present in the platform, in the RIR platform with all the same rights and properties that other address space, and that can be a blockage for some organization. But we also find, interestingly, address space that is non-legacy. And that is because in some of the RIR's management portal, for the IP addresses to really appear in RPKI certificate and have the key that provides the ability to issue the certificate, the organization needs to click or has the ability to opt out of RPKI. And there's the checkbox there that said like, okay, RPKI for my organization or for this set of resources from our organization. And there are organizations that have not clicked that. So our view is that these set of prefixes actually are not that easy to get into RPKI, because here is either a policy decision of the organizations of them not doing RPKI or not signing a certain legal agreement, or a level of unawareness that the organization simply is like not at all aware that they could, that there is anything that says RPKI where they could click, and probably they're not frequently accessing their managing system. So basically these are prefixes that would take quite some effort to take into RPKI. On the more positive side, we have that still most of the routed prefixes are already in the RPKI tree, so have the keys to issue the ROAs. And then most of them don't have such complicated routing with a lot of sub-prefixes. And actually, at least half of the non-ROA prefixes, a little bit less than half, actually have not been reassigned to other customers that would require a lot of coordination between two organizations. So these like 47.4% should be fairly easy to issue RPKI of certificate. So of course they would need to, depends on whether or not they have other services, such as we talked about the DDoS services. However, we also looked at what are the organizations behind these 47.4%. And it turns out that although there's a little bit less than half of them, so a 20% total, that has already issued RPKI certificate. So for these organizations should be just wrap up all your RPKI certificates. You've done it before, just finish with this address space that appears not to be very difficult. So that could be done fairly easy. There's 27.2% of the total that these are organizations that have not ever issue any ROA or RPKI certificate. And these could talk about a problem of awareness in these organizations. And when we look at them into more details, it turns out that many of these are small organizations, and again, non-ISPs organization. So here again, it's a challenge how to reach out to those organizations, to make them aware, to provide enough training so that those organizations would start issuing RPKI certificates. So considering all of this, we argue that reaching high level of adoption will require support. It's not going to happen by itself. Like my PhD student Deepak Gouda, representing when we presented the papers, like our expectation that at this point, after these many years, RPKI would be like a straight line to bike. Turns out there's still ups and downs, and there's it requires awareness, planning, and deployment, and it's not that easy to get RPKI adoption. So based on these studies, our recommendation is that there should be new channels for awareness or training for RPKI, because not only networking people need to become aware and train on RPKI to be able to get higher levels of adoption. We also recommend more support for the development of software tools related to RPKI, because many organizations need a lot of internal development to properly integrate RPKI with their operation. And also related to this, it's to have much more community knowledge sharing, and maybe MANRS could play a role in there, because even in how to design those tools, there's a lot of reinventing the wheel on how the different networks are creating those software tools, but also in the design of how of those tools and the architecture that the organization have to support RPKI operation. There's a lot of reinventing on how to think about, how to decide, and it could be like on the ROA perspective of how to handle the key management of who can issue a ROA, and how to fetch the different records, and have some testing internally for whether this is the right ROA for something, and then pushing it to the RIR infrastructure. Two things of how to decide how to implement a root origin validation, how many different validators, how long to manage the cache of RPKI records, whether to have the servers on the cloud or not on the cloud. So many organizations are having to have those decisions, and there's not much knowledge sharing of how those decisions were made in the organizations that already adopted RPKI. So with that, I leave you here with the links to our two papers that talk about different aspects of RPKI adoption. Thank you. .
Nice work. Nice work, Cecilia, and all, and nicely presented. Thank you. If you want, I'll kick off. There might be questions from others or comments, but if you go back one to the branching slide, I don't know if it's one or more that had all the branches.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Zoom. You mean the different percents of RPKI
Yeah.
prefixes? Yeah, let me share my screen again.
And I say Sophia has one after that. Yeah, so when you get to the right-hand side, those are the percentages, and then it keeps going out, or the percentages of 100%. So over a quarter, or maybe in the well, right. So something less than a quarter, or possibly definitely, it really in the low-hanging fruit, and then more than a quarter maybe in the slightly higher fruit ranks. So that's interesting. So is that data set, and obviously it's a bit of a point in time, one that can be shared?
So for this one, we can make this graph publicly available, but the data set that supports this analysis is publicly available, and the code of the paper is also publicly available. So if you rewrite it, you can get all of this, but we can also think about, so this was just presented at IMC kind of 15 days ago.
Yeah.
We can provide the information of which prefixes are in which category in our website and have a list of them. So you can see the different organizations.
You just have to add the thing like Steve had to copy their email addresses into a thing to send them email. Here's what you need to do.
And like now automate like the spamming all these people until they get their the raw.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, I think after this meeting, probably Alejandro or somebody will share the meeting materials, and maybe including those links, or you could put the links in the chat now to the repos, since they may be harder to dig out of the PDF. But okay, and questions I see. Well, hold on. Well, let's go with the people who are thoughtful to raise their hand. Sofía first.
Thank you, Tony, and thanks, Cecilia, for the presentation. Nice seeing you again and to see all the work that you guys have been doing. It looks like you have been busy. Just wanted to share that when you were talking about people that you may need to convince about deploying RPKI, and maybe upper management, maybe sales, wanted to do +1 to that, because last year we did some user research as part of the RPKI program. It was not as extensive as the work you did, but all the people, a pattern we got from the people we talked to asking about what were the challenges for RAR creation was aligned with those comments about, I have to convince my bosses who may not have the technical background to deeply understand RPKI, but we still need to convince them of how important this is, so they give it enough priority, so they resources can be allocated to it, right? Time, money, whatever is necessary. So when then I came across towards the end of the year last year, and I presented at IGF, someone shared with me a document I'm pasting now in chat, how to convince your boss to deploy DNSSEC and RPKI. I thought that was pretty cool. So it touches on that and trying to remove all the technicalities and create the business case for those technologies. Also, as part of a fellowship program at APNIC, they did a session with one of the people involved in IS3C. But I do agree with you that there is more work to be done in that space, that there's a lot of technical training and lots of technical spaces where people talk about RPKI, but for the non-so-technical people, it may not be that easy. So yeah, it would be great to see more efforts in that space. RPKI for non-technical people in very basic language, something like that. Thank you, Cecilia.
Yeah, no, and just to add a little bit on this from the colors that I got from the interviews, and as some of the challenges are also is these very technical people are now in the position that they need to make through the effort of how do I explain this to somebody that is non-technical. And that's usually not the skills that the people have. So for example, in one of the interviews, one of the team is like, oh yeah, this was, they were like, I'm saying, we're lucky I'm not the only one in this. So we're like a team of 3 working out. We figured that this one person was an excellent communicator. So from then on, we were like, we handle all this stuff. We handle all that. You go and do as many like RPKI presentations that you need in our organization, all of that. And they said like that person did like so many roadshow and going all the different parts of their organization. And each point is like presenting to this and then presenting to the advisor of the CEO and then present to this and all and like they hit until they got it out. But I mean, then you're like, okay, well, do all of the teams have this ability of how to communicate this and how to make that happen? So yeah, it is a challenge indeed.
Okay. We have a couple more to get to, so let's make the comments quick. Steve.
So I'm fortunate in that part of my job is to actually consult with 1,000 different networks on creating ROAs. And my experience is many of these networks don't have any experience with us. And what they need is, could be a brief conversation, but some basic support from somebody who is comfortable with helping them understand the ROAs they need. And I think that's missing. So, I'm fortunate Internet 2 sees this as a priority and supports this for their community, but I'm unaware of anything similar elsewhere. And I think that's really missing.
Cool. Very good. And I saw Eric had a similar in chat comment, so that's very much in line.
I'm here.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Next up. Go ahead, Cheng King.
So may I share my screen?
I will give you now, all yours.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
So I will go straight to some demonstration. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
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 I will. Yeah. Okay. I will introduce 4 parts functions of the platform. That's anomaly detection, the dashboard monitor, and the routing pause information and subscriptions. And first, for the anomaly, we have prefix and path and root leak anomaly. That's step by step. For the prefix anomaly, it is based on machine learning method and the features including many information from RPKI, the behavior of the IS and its sector. We combine all these features and develop the machine learning based method. For the event information, we have the victim and attacker information, the prefix information, and also we evaluate the impact range and the impact level of the event. And also we do data plane probing to check further. Also we can go dive into the detailed information. For the detailed information, we can see some feature information and some prefix information. And also we do data plane detection. We can click here to expand it. We can see that we probe the target from several hosts, from several probes. This is the routing tree. We probe it from the S that are not affected and some S that are affected and calculate the correlation. because if the correlation is high, it may more potential to be an anomaly. If it's lower, the correlation is lower, it may inferred as maybe it's no harm. Go further to path anomaly. We mainly the main idea is that the writing tree for NS is mainly stable. If there are a major change in the writing tree and combined with other features, it may be inferred as an abnormal event. Also, we can check the detailed information. That here we can see the writing tree after the event and before the event. We can see some new paths occurred here, and it needs further check from the operators. Also, for the root leak anomaly, we mainly the main idea is that the prefix traverse and link may be in a normal distribution. If it's in the edge of the distribution, it may be inferred as an anomaly event. Also, we can check the detailed information and the path for each linked prefix. I think most of the information is to provide more information to operators. So as a reminder, they will pay attention to the events to check further. The second part is a dashboard. This is mainly for provide summary information for operators. We can see the basic information, the anomaly information, and the prefix trend, the change. You can keep an eye of your network, get some basic information, and also you can, if there are some changes, you can click and then get more information. And we also check the and who is alignment, and also the prefix distribution, some bug information, and also we check the SIV alignment. So most of this summary information are alignment with MANRS objectives. Also, the bug information, you can get the detailed bug information. For the routing paths, you can see the forward routing path and reverse routing path and by routing path and some data information and daily bug information. For the routing paths, you can check how your traffic are directed to a destination. You can input an prefix here, and also you can input an SN here. We can just hear this is from our senator, and this is internet tool. It's a simple traverse path, but for some SN, we can check another SN. This is from senator to this is RNP from Latin America. So we can say that there are several paths from this edge to the destination, and we can click each block, and we can get the corresponding writing paths. It differs from largely. Also, some paths these two S are all entering S, but they traverse from some commercial S. So we think this can provide some insight for operators. For the reverse routing path is for the operators to check how traffic was directly to their network. They can check any there's any S, and they can see how the traffic was sent from this S to their prefix, so they can know how the traffic are going. And also we can see two prefix, how about the traffic traversed for between them. We can see the forward writing path and the reverse writing path. They are different. There are actually exist many unsymmetric writing paths. For that, we also monitor the routing advertisement, the change. We can see that every block, every time point is a 5 minutes block. We can see that the path, the routing paths are changing from time to time. Every 5 minutes, about 10 announcements are sent. Also, we can check APAN GP. There are more advertisements for their prefix. We can see that every 5 minutes there are almost maybe 30 or more announcements for them. For the daily booking information, we can see there is this is a summary page. We can see the trend and the top NS that broadcast the most booking prefix. Also, we can check the detailed information. We can check, and this is a booking prefix, but it is broadcast worldwide. So it really need more coordination from our community, or maybe some higher ads that should be put more responsibility on this. Also, for operators, they can subscribe some ads for their quick monitor. As you can see the prefix change, peer change, and path change. When you do some configuration, you want to monitor the path changer. Also, you can see the anomaly information, all the subscribed as you can see the anomaly information here in one page. Also, you can download, you can get weekly report, you can set your email settings. And for the menus, we provide menu and video, and also we provide several APIs. You can get information from this API and embed this information into your system. I think this is the most of the functions of the platform, and we are continually updating the platform. So if you encounter some problem, or if you have some suggestions, just contact us. We will input the contact information in the chat box. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very impressive. If you want to put the URL into the chat, I'm sure
yes,
people will spend. I mean, I'll probably spend the rest of this evening staring at this because there's so many things to look at. Nicely done, and great wealth of information to put in front of our eyes together. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I believe we have one more presentation for today. Is that right, Alejandro?
Yes. There's a question. I don't know if you want to go quickly. Question or comment from Andrew Gallo. Yeah.
APNIC is running a 2-part course. Okay, well, let's consider that informational. on BGP Watch. Okay, right. So a follow-up on this. Okay, very good. Coming up in a few weeks, I guess that is two or 3 weeks. Thank you. Question is, future development plans question. So we don't have a lot of time, but maybe if you want to answer that in a chat, Chenking. But we want to make sure that this last presentation also has time. Last presenter, TJ from Virginia Tech.
All right, now let me share the screen.
Yes, I will close
Yep.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let me start it. Hello, everyone. My name is TJ from Virginia Tech. So today I'd like to talk about how we are going to use LLM and the metadata to make a kind of precise mapping for AS2 organization. So the central question we'd like to answer is who actually manages each AS on the internet? So far, mainly from academia, there are lots of approaches using Whois data or peering DB. And after that, we cluster a sensor together. If they share their organization name, shares a similar or identical organization name using regular expression or something like that. So you might ask, hey, why we need it? In terms of RPKI perspective, so understanding sometimes ROA misconfiguration happens. So which means BGP origin sometimes does not match with the ROA origin. Of course, not all of them are hijacked because there can be lots of misconfigurations. So multiple AS, organizations that have multiple ASs can misconfigure their origin AS if they incorrectly assign multiple ASs under its umbrella. So sometimes they swap the AS number, but using the same ROA, but announcing a different the prefixes from a different location. And from the context of a Sophia's talk and the Cecilia's talk, we may ask, hey, why do we observe some network operators that appear across multiple RIRs, but deploy ROAs only within a specific RIR? So for example, we noticed that some network operators, they do not deploy any RPKI ROAs in AFRIMIG. Also, it could be useful for BGP hijacking detection because existing hijacking detection platform, sometimes they are not sure whether it is real hijack or not. So they do use AS2 org mapping to filter out some potential false positives. And also it'll be useful to measure our organization consign. So some limitation of the previous work is like sometimes the ownership changes, Whois updates like years behind real world M&A, and what happens if one company acquires another without updating Whois records, it happens. And of course, it has some subsidiaries and hierarchy relationship which cannot be reflected in Whois records. And the peering DB, it has a low coverage, and sometimes it requires some manual, efforts for correcting some errors. So our intuition is, you might think, all right, this guy will be using LLM. So maybe we just open up ChatGPT and ask, hey, LLM, what is the relationship of these two organizations? So unfortunately, this is not working correctly. Could be because of lots of reasons. The first one is sometimes LLM's lack of recent M&A or rebrands. And also we have like 90K organizations. So if you're interested in a two organizations relationship, we can send a query to ChatGPT because the pairwise comparison is going to over like 8 billion. And so because of that, what we do is, this is our pipeline. First, we get the list of potential organizations from Whois, IRR, and peering DB. And then we construct the queries for each organization using keywords like acquisition, merged, aliases, and other related terms. And then we use Google search, and then we crawl like 10 pages for each query And then we apply name entity recognition to filter out some unrelated content like HTML text, ads, and JavaScript. So that, for example, if we crawl the web page containing Sprint in the T-Mobile acquisition page, then we remove all the HTML unrelated files, and then we only focus on the name like Sprinting and the Sprint Corporation and the T-Mobile. And then we construct our local information base using RAG by pulling in real-time corporate disclosures. And then for each organization we are interested, we retrieve related organization from this database. And then we now use a LLM, and we provide all the meta information that we collected from the internet, and we ask, hey, based on this information that's given, how can you guess, what is the relationship of these two organizations? Like, whether it is Alice's, whether it is subsidiary, or if it is unknown, you don't know. So after that, we create a kind of big JSON file that contains all the information, and then we share this information on a website. So this is a kind of overview of all the data set we use so far. So we run multiple times, but generally it has like we collected 11,000 ASNs and the 3 million organization records, and we also use 30K ASs from PeeringDB, and then we fetched like 800,000 web pages, which contains 20 million text chunks, and then we group related organizations under the same administrative entity, which we call it organization family. So of course, there could be a lot of false positive. That's why we need the community efforts. So we provide all this data set and also API on this website, asint.netsecurelab.org. So it provides two features. The first one is ASN search, so which returns the ASN you queried and also related ASN numbers that we think they are related as the organization family. So one quick, and also there is another feature which allows you can type a name, organization name. So in this case, you can type Microsoft, and you will see lots of different names here. It is because some entities are acquired by Microsoft. For instance, ZeniMax Germany is a subsidiary of ZeniMax Media, which is the parent company. So that's why the parent number shows up here, 2804, which is the ZeniMax Media. And the reason why these two rows are in the color the same color is because they are alias. And later, ID Software was acquired acquired by ZeniMax Media. So that's why ID Software, their parent is 2804, which is ZeniMax Media. And also later, Microsoft finalized acquisition of ZeniMax Media. That's why Microsoft here, their children is one of their children is 2804, which is ZeniMax Media. So using this approach, we are not only identifying the aliases, but also we can infer parent and their children relationship. So one quick case study is like this. We type orange, and we see lots of names here across multiple RIRs. And these are under the same organization family. In case of Equant, it is also acquired by Orange. And Global One in Erin is also acquired by Orange. That's why we showed all of these rows are under the same organization family. And also, we have another feature called multi-RIR family. So if it returns all organization found in one specific one specific RIR you're interested in, but also appearing in other multiple RIRs. So for example, in case of if you type a Deloitte, because it's a big company, it has a multiple organization name with a different name, but also manages like many aliases across multiple RIRs like Airfinic, Ripe, Erin, JPIR, and Latnik. So this is the quick status of the project. We run whole pipeline every month. And because for sustainability, we are not using ChatGPT or expensive service, we run our own, self-hosted model. And the pipeline model upgrades roll into the next snapshot. So if a new LLM model, powerful model shows up, we apply the new model into our pipeline. So another one roadmap or future update will be there must be some changes from the first snapshot and the second snapshot after a month because there could be some acquisition that might happen. In that case, we analyze the differences and we will show this kind of differences on our website. So we need your feedback. We acknowledge that our results may contain, of course, false positive errors. So please search your ASN numbers, and if you think it is wrong, then you can simply use this button of thumbs up or thumbs down button, or you can leave a comment that says, hey, this is the reference you're missing, and then we will automatically fetch the website into the next pipeline and update the result. Also, we would like to hear your usage of AS2 org mapping, like hijacking detection or RPKI misconfiguration handling. So currently, as I mentioned before, the hijacking detection system whitelists the prefix if it is announced from RPKI invalid origin, but if it is under the same organization. So we are interested in the use case of AS2 org mapping. So if you're interested in more technical details, here's the archive link, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, TJ. I'll say I've found, for instance, if I search on our organization name, I find that there is something that I knew about, which is a company using the same name in a different regional registry, completely unrelated, but it's good to see that I can at least get eyes on that through the tool, and I guess downvoted as not related, but it's helpful. So I would encourage people, and if you want to drop the URL right into the URL for the website and maybe the paper into the chat, people will probably appreciate that. I don't know if there's other questions. We only have really kind of at our time limit, but if there are quick questions, I'd like to entertain them. All right. I will say that one bit of feedback I think from before is that some people know about the NRO or the NRO stats, sometimes it's called, but the publication, the files that are published by all the RIRs that have all the resources that they have under management and sort of opaque identifiers that that you may find related things, which is helpful to a degree, but I think the work that TJ and his team has done help, with putting the English into that, so you can see what things are related, but then you can also see what the organization name or names might be, which is helpful for the average human to use in research. Okay. Beyond that, anything else, Alejandro? I see Leslie and her cat have popped up nicely just in time. Or any other questions that people might have? If not, I will like to thank our presenters and the MANRS Secretariat, the GCA team, of course, but all you MANRS community who have joined with us, and thanks for your continued support and interest in the topics, all the interesting and informative topics that we've covered today. All right. With that, we can wrap it up, I suppose. Bye-bye, everyone.